Hey guys, today we're talking to Mark Ainley. This is a must listen if you're a Chicago investor, if you're investing in Illinois. Mark is the host of Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. So let's get into it. Today in the studio, we have the Mark Ainley with GC Realty and Development and Straight Up Chicago Podcast. So, man, welcome back. I know you're a frequent guest, so welcome back. 5 important things if you're going to invest in real estate in the Chicago market today, right? So, Mark, before we jump right into it, you want to give a brief background to everybody, kind of why we have you here, why you're the real estate expert.
Well, I joked around before that I'm here because I answer the text message faster than anyone else you might have invited.
True.
But if that aside, we've been in business this year 22 years, which is pretty exciting. We managed, we manage right now 1,400 properties. We've managed over probably 6,000 properties in the 22 years. We're investors ourselves. I've done over 500 BRRRR strategy type properties at this point. And we've made all the mistakes, and at the same time, if we're not making them, we're seeing the other people that are making them.
Got it. So with you, you've been around for a while in real estate, right? What did you start?
2003 was when we first started. That's when GC Realty started, and we got into the residential brokerage with the goal to be a commercial brokerage, but that's hard to tap into. So we ended up kind of going into the residential side first because that's where the opportunity was.
Got it. And that's where. So what would you, you saw obviously the 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10 coming out of it, the 12. You've done a lot of real estate, right? You've been around, you're doing some of the light industrial, some of those kind of things also. If I was to ask you kind of getting into it, because all of us kind of started with a hope and a prayer and a dream to be successful. What do you see, man, the commonalities of people through ups and downs, right? That you feel that makes somebody above average stand out and they do well over a long period of time?
The reoccurring theme that I see is the person that jumps in what people might call too fast never fails in the long run.
Okay.
So I almost feel there's not, you could wake up today and say, I want to get into real estate, which a lot of people do. And a lot of people have that dream. Maybe they want to get out of their daily grind. But there's two people. There's the people that actually take X amount of steps and jump in. And then there's the people that just take X amount of years and might not ever jump in, but then, or jump in and do it once and it just doesn't go well. But the people that move faster and actually do it sooner, and they're actually the ones that I see come back. They do the second property, they do the third property, they make it their career. And I think that's the biggest thing of, we talk a lot about it in the podcast of just do it. And I think you could probably confirm this, but you can read as much as you want or listen to as much as you want, but until you go through those first few deals and maybe get punched in the face a couple times or wake up with bad news, like, man, that's real. That's the real stuff you're really learning.
So part of it is grit, right? I mean, part of it is grit, and part of it is, I personally feel this way. I mean, we have a common friend, Jared Cott, right? What a nut. I love the guy, right? And I mean this nut in a very positive manner, not in a negative manner. The guy is nuts,
yeah.
Right? But, runs a sweet business, runs a great business, but you have to be a little unique to be like him, right? Where he jumped in, lost his job, cashed in 401k, probably not all the wrong things you could do. He did. All the wrong parts of town you could buy a damn property in at the time when he started. He did. And yet, despite that, he has a great, I'm like, dude, you should have been a black dude, right? Literally. I'm like, you're in the wrong part of town with the wrong, meaning economically was challenged, a lot of crime, but yet he makes it work and he loves, he's one of those, he's like, man, I love my tenants, dude. I love it, right? It's that attitude of I'm never giving up. You think that has a lot to do with it?
Yeah, well, if anyone knows Jared, he's got a million stories. We've had him on the podcast a couple times, and his stories are actually the way he delivers. He delivers the story perfectly, so it's an entertaining value as well. But he has failed fast, and that's what I'm saying. The people that jump in a lot of times have failed 2 or 3 times before that first person ever even writes the first offer. And that's exactly what Jared's failed a lot, and he's messed up a lot. He's lost a lot of money on stupid stuff. But here we are 10 years later, literally almost to the date for him specifically, dude, he's got more than anybody else would want when they're going on the front end of trying to get into real estate.
And I have a second thought to that. One is grit. The second is a logical thinking process in the long run. Meaning, initially when we get started, we have all these crazy ideas. Like Jared's example. But yet, if you talk to the guy more than the kind of the funny stories, funny thing, he's smart.
Oh, yeah.
And he thinks through things, and he knows where he's going. He's not jumping from one thing to another, to another, to another. And I feel a lot of times that people who fail are often people who will jump from one thing to another to another. Sometimes you'll do something, doesn't work, you find something, but then you stick with it. That maybe it goes back to grit. Like clear thinking, I think is important, and grit. If you have those two a lot, you don't have to be the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree to succeed in this business. I've always felt that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree 100% on that.
Right? So having said that, there were a few major things that are going on as we speak, and that's why we wanted to have you come in and kind of talk about it. So let's start from the top. I kind of had some notes because some of these things, I'm in my la-la land sometimes, right? The first thing was the new law on credit reports and tenants. Talk about that.
How about this? This is crazy. Now, starting January 1st, if a tenant comes to apply for your rental and they have one of the 3 credit bureau credit reports, you have to accept it and not charge them. Now, it doesn't have to be the final truth, and there's nothing in the law that says you can't go run your own, but at this point, you cannot charge them for that credit report.
So for people watching, or you may not be a professional landlord yet, meaning you may not have a lot of properties, generally whenever a tenant applies, you're going to charge them $25, $35, whatever it is. A lot of people will send them a smart move link that, hey, pay this, fill out your information, credit report gets generated, sent back to you. So when I hear this as a landlord, right, on my side of it, first, that's BS, man, because I mean, today with PDF, with phones, with whatever, I can generate any damn thing I want. I can generate PhDs, right? How do you deal with that? Especially you're doing professional management, not just for your properties, but for thousands of the people. How do you deal with this? What's the practical use of it?
Well, I know this came into play because of the housing shortage, and then the people, housing not being affordable, and people having to apply to so many places and paying that application fee 9, 10 times before they actually get approved for somewhere. So that it has good roots and good purpose for it. But what we're going to talk about here today is some of the unintended consequences that go with it. But the credit report, yes, that's the first thing. Like, oh my gosh, it could be fake. Now, the good thing about this is there's nowhere in the law that says that you can't go run your own credit report. You might be out the couple bucks that you need to do that costs. But at the same time, I would encourage anyone listening here that you still figure out, make sure that that's legit.
You're in compliance, right?
Yes.
I mean, and again, there's 2 types of people, right? Every person, there's some people, oh yeah, that's why I don't buy in Chicago, right? Again, if that's who you are, that's fine. I mean, we have a flat earth that we live on, kind of thing, right? Just understand, guys, right? That anytime there is hurdles, there are ways to comply, yet be in a place where you make a good business decision, right? I mean, that's just how it is, right? Now, if you're the person who says, well, I'm just not going to buy certain places, that's fine. Nobody's stopping you, but certainly this is, so how do you guys suggest people deal with it?
Yeah, so a lot of people, when they charge the application fee, it's not just for that credit report. Usually, for us, we're charging for the background check. We're charging for the public records, the eviction check.
Sure.
Some of the underwriting, just the software that we have to use to underwrite the application. So it's kind of that all goes into it. So you have 2 options. You either waive the fee altogether and just accept it and just call it a cost in doing business, or you can reduce your fee to offset the actual cost of the credit report. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of property managers doing. A lot of property managers are charging $50, $60, and they're saying that the credit report is worth $25. So they're turning around and saying, we'll send you a special link and it'll be reduced by $25.
Got it. Okay.
Now, the good news for this is this has been going on in California for a few years, and I have some property manager friends out there that this doesn't come up that often. So my first thought is the flood of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to deal with this all year round. Now, we're a couple weeks into the new year, and I think we've only had one person request it, and I'm not even sure if that was the exact scenario that played out. But one other thing to add to it is how the law is written. It has to be the 3 bureaus, one of the 3 credit bureaus, and it can't be here's my login, go into my Credit Karma
Sure.
or my Citi card. So it has to be very legit. So how I'd recommend for landlords to do is make sure you have some sort of written policy around it. It's just a one-page of this is how I do it. For us, we have a paragraph that we write of, hey, we're going to reduce it by this much. Here's the new link, and we're only reducing it by this much because we're still charging you to do this, this, and this, and these are the only type of reports that we're going to accept. So
got it. Okay.
And we're also throwing out a disclaimer that we're still going to run your credit. So
okay.
you can't come back and yell at us because you have another ding on your credit.
Right. Okay. So basically, number one, I mean, and I think that makes sense, right? For any of this stuff, and this is interesting about property management is you got to be equal, right? I mean, you have to have equal standards, period. You're tough on your tenant selection, but you got to be equal. That's the biggest issue. Number one, that's a basic thing. And then you have to have a set of policies and guidelines and have them in compliance, right? Because then nobody can claim, well, you do this or that. Because even if you come to court and he who has the best paperwork in place is going to win. This is just how courts work. Remember, law is blind, right? So because every time you can produce, judge, this is the process we follow, right? That a lot of times, if you're winging it, that's where things go sideways, right?
Yeah, I tell even investors that have one property and you rent it out once every 3 years, like you should still have a one-pager of this is what I do, exactly how I do it, and put as much of that into your Zillow listing or however you're marketing it. That way, it's very transparent to how you're handling things, and if you have to then follow that then too. Right. I got a lot of people that write up those one-pagers and then they just do whatever the hell they want, and that's where they open themselves up to liability.
Right. So that's number one. Anything else related to that in terms of credit?
That's about it. I'm not sure how much this will actually come up or affect people, but this is something that people need to know because you now could get in trouble then through, the credit, it's not the credit bureaus, but fair credit agencies through not complying with this. And
right. And you mentioned something in your, on the kind of one page, hey, this is the process of, when you apply with us kind of thing, basically, right? That you're disclosing in there that we may not be charging you, but if we run an additional credit report, right, to no expense to you, we may do that and that may ding your credit, right? So you're disclosing that. So you're not just running a credit report, because that can be the other issue. Well, I didn't charge for it. Well, but you didn't disclose. You can't just run somebody's credit without their permission, right? So that needs to be somewhere a part of your application.
Yep,
right?
For sure.
Okay.
And disclosure, I think, when it comes to stuff like that, it's really easy not to put that in and say, I'll deal with it when it comes up. But
yeah.
I did that too much early in my career of I'll figure that out when it comes up.
Yeah.
And then you spend so much time and energy or legal fees fighting stupid stuff.
Right, which doesn't make sense.
No.
Got it. Now, is this related in any way to the whole criminal background check and all that kind of noise that we were... Actually, before we go there, on that end, is this related to Cook County, Chicago only, or is this for Illinois, period?
The Cook County just housing is 100% separate, and that is only Cook County, and this would be the entire state of Illinois.
This would be entire state of Illinois. Yep. Okay, so got it. So basically, doesn't matter where you own a property, you have to comply.
Correct.
Right. And are other states this way also, or state specific?
It's state specific. I know California's one, Arizona's one, and they've had that in their laws for I think 2 years now. So.
Okay, got it. So it's basically going to be Indiana, maybe a little different, so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. All right. So there was another thing that I thought about from that was there was a lot of conversation a couple of years ago or a year ago about you can't do a criminal background check on a person, right? What's the whole story behind that? Is there such a thing, number one?
Yeah, so in Cook County right now, you are not allowed to do a background check until you've qualified or disqualified them based on their general parameters of income, rental history, anything else you're going to do that's not background. And then once you approve them under those terms, then you can proceed and run the background check. Now, if you run the background check and you're going to disqualify them for something on the background check at that point, there's a whole list of things that you have to follow and give them a chance to justify it. And a whole bunch of chances and days to let them justify why that's on there, or actually even speak to the accuracy. And with that came a bunch of different things that you cannot, like you can only go 3 years back. So if someone killed somebody 20 years ago, like you literally cannot disqualify for that. More likely they'll be in jail for that still at this point, but you can't do that. And then it has to be actual convictions, and it can't be just someone's going through the court process now.
And again, I mean, this is again one of those things that can be very reactionary. Obviously, first thing with the amount of properties I own, I don't do the management myself. We have staff for that, so a lot of times I may not know the exact part of what it is, but the first thing that comes up is, oh my God, man, you're telling me somebody who's a murderer, somebody who's did something with kids. We all have that crazy reaction, right? That's normal. That's how people. But guess what? How many times does that truly come up? Not saying it doesn't come up, but you have to look at what was the intent of the law, right? And the intent of the law generally is not to cause harm. Generally is to address something that was going wrong, right? I mean, perfect example of this, I don't know when it was, sometime one of these loans, something, they ran the name, they'll run your name, and something shows up. And the guy sends me this. He's like, man, there was some sort of a arrest record for some DUI or something, right? Now, Andrew Holmes is not necessarily, it's not the most common name, but it's not unheard of, right? So some Andrew Holmes, and I mean, he's like, man, something came up, but it looks like it's really old. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, what do you mean, don't worry about it, right? I'm not, it would offend me that I'm like, I was that stupid that I was drinking and I don't even know about it and I was driving. So I looked, and it's those kind of things that there can be a common name or something can show up that may not, I mean, I didn't even know who the person was, no idea, but those things can happen. And so that's what that law was intended for, so that the tenant truly has a chance to address it, correct?
Yes, and I forgot the exact study or how many, but it was like they looked at like 10,000 rental listings before they passed this, and it's like 30% of them said no background must be clean for the last 20 years, or some crazy like, all right, so you just eliminated housing for people that might have just got a DUI, or where it was starting to really hurt people was like, I got pinched for a small amount of marijuana 4 years ago. That's now legal.
Yeah.
Or shoplifting when I was 17 and now I'm 26. Like
something just basically when somebody 18, 19, 20 years old, something happened, they did something. I mean, come on, right?
We all did it.
You got to be reasonable about some sort of thing. But intent of the law was obviously to solve a problem, but it will have unintended consequences.
When it comes to sexual predators or that list, it's much looser. There's things you don't have to necessarily. The rules a little different. I won't quote it specifically here because I'm not 100% sure, but for people that might be thinking like, I can't put that next to my park or my school or whatever. Like, don't worry. Like, there's plenty of things in the law that will not allow that to happen.
And we're addressing that because a lot of times it's people will you have two extremes of people, and those are the only ones we hear. Is, you mean you're going to basically not give somebody a second chance? Guys, everybody has made some mistakes. Some of us just didn't get caught doing something stupid. That's all it is. We've all done stupid stuff. Let's just be real about it, right? But yet, I think most of the laws, most of them, when they're written with some sense of reasonableness, right? They're not generally written just to harm everybody. Yes, we may perceive it as such because it's like, seems as an attack on me because I have a lot of properties, right?
We deal with all the unintended consequences,
right,
and that's all us we ever see.
Got it. So the other thing that was, and this is a big issue, which is the rise in source of income discrimination suits. Explain, what does that mean?
All right, so it was 3 years ago, you were in the city of Chicago proper, you could no longer discriminate against Section 8. Source of income. Now, source of income is nowhere where you get your money from, but it really usually falls back to a Section 8 conversation. So I'm going to use that here in this scenario. But you weren't allowed to put, no, I won't accept Section 8, won't take it, you can't deny them because they're on Section 8. Now, just last year, the beginning of 2024, it became a state law. And you were not able...
I did not realize that. Yeah. I thought it was still in Cook County.
No, so this is a state law as of 2024 that you cannot put in your marketing, no Section 8. You cannot discriminate against Section 8. You cannot... you just can't... It was very blunt. I think you saw more like no Section 8 not accepted. Or Section 8,
right,
so,
correct.
So that came out. But now we're 2 years into... So we're about 2 years through this into this new law, and the tenants just recently started talking to attorneys. And the case that I shared with you that came up last week is a tenant that got the voucher, knew the program, spent a year trying to get approved, went through like 14 different places, including some pretty big names that if you read the article, you'll be familiar with them, applied to them, got denied for whatever reason, but the undertone was saying that she was only denied because of her source of income.
Your source of income.
And now she lost her voucher for it. Now, so this is a suit that was taken on against 14 landlords that, for whatever reason, denied her. And this could have huge repercussions against all of us because the reason that we all hate the Chicago RTLO is because the attorneys make good money on it, and it's an easy kind of shooting fish in a bucket situation for them. So they go after those cases.
Right.
So if a case like this all of a sudden becomes very profitable to the legal side of the world, now all of a sudden all of us landlords, anyone that comes with a Section 8, is she going to get denied here and get denied somewhere else, and then turn around and we get a lawsuit? So
yeah, and you better have good records, right? In terms of that, what was your reason for denial?
Yes.
Right? I mean, I can just, as soon as you're talking about this, I think about it. I'm like, man, do we really keep records of denials? Right? I mean, that's a big, because now something comes up 6 months, 8 months down the road. It's like, hey, Miss Andra, what happened about that XYZ lady we denied, Mrs. Smith, right? Like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Andrew. I mean, and it could have been for any reason. It could have been that she didn't submit stuff, but if you're named in a lawsuit, now the monkey's on your back.
Well,
right?
landlords attorneys advise landlords, I know this is how it's been for me over the years, to be as general as possible when you're denying somebody, to not go down any rabbit hole. And if you're doing that in this scenario, then you definitely have no paper trail for if you run into an issue like that.
But that's where if somebody claims...
It's bad, though. I'm saying it's bad.
Right, yeah. That hey, they denied me because of XYZ. I mean, man, how do you defend yourself? Because they're like, well, Mr. Holmes, why did you deny her? I'm like, Judge, we have no idea, right? Even if you have 20, 30 units, forget about a few hundred, right? Man, I have no idea who made rental applications 6 months ago, right? I mean, how do you really keep track? I mean, so it can be a set of issues, but I think it goes back to what you were talking about, which is having a proper process and procedure, and everybody needs to be. We just got to follow that process, right? So that this doesn't become an issue.
The thing that stinks about fair housing is it's guilty to proven innocent,
right?
And I've had one claim through Chicago fair housing rights or whatever. It was for a Section 8 tenant that got denied, and so it was because we literally had 30 Section 8 tenants within a 2-mile radius of there. It's like I had to go defend that whole thing and go back and do the paperwork. So it's always a very timely process to have to defend against it. But now you bring the attorneys into it, and it gets even trickier. But there's 2 times when you are able to really legitimately deny the tenants, and there's probably more, but these are the 2 very clear ones that if these are it, make sure you're very blunt on it. It's one, if the numbers don't make sense. So if you have a 3-bedroom in Schaumburg, your numbers are literally, if you have a rent over $2,500, the numbers don't work. But be very clear, if you have that $3,000 rental, hey, tenant, I just can't make the numbers work, and here's the numbers, and show them. And the other time is if there's work that you just aren't going to put into the place. And it could be 2 different scenarios there. It could be Section 8 is going to fail you for a concrete stoop that's all chipping away that you could probably rent to a market tenant for and get another 5 years out of it, but you're not going to go put that $7,500 into it right now. Or there's the HOA side of things where it's like, hey, they'll still come and ding you for HOA things, but the HOA is not going to do any work. So those are really the 2.5 reasons that you actually could justly not have to rent.
And again, this can be looked at from both sides of it, right? Which if whoever this person is got denied by 16 different people, I don't think 16 people are prejudiced.
No.
Right? I mean, you can look at it from that perspective also. It depends on which side of the coin you're looking on. I mean, being prejudiced is a human condition, right? I mean, we all have our opinions about stuff, but I don't think 16 companies are going to be prejudiced. I mean, let's just give a break, right? So it's kind of both ends, but depending on which side are you representing?
Yeah.
This can be an issue.
Now, going back to you keep hitting on the paper trail. It's so important because the one example I brought up where the Section 8 tenant accused us of being prejudiced against Section 8, I had to go back, and really that person got denied because we accepted someone else before.
Sure.
And we maybe weren't clear in telling her why she was denied, or she didn't like that reason, or she just thought we were full of it. But I had to literally bring to the hearing the timestamps of us approving somebody else prior to her application coming in. So
Sure.
it became very important for us in that scenario to make sure if you are, I think what I'm trying to say here is no matter what, at the end of the day right now, the risk for denying Section 8 tenants, just reason or not, you got to make sure you have your ducks in a row because this could come back to haunt you a year, 2 years later.
Right. The next thing was there was a impact, so broader impact on the real estate market and ripple effect on rentals, housing, prediction of how landlords. So what was that whole point about that that you had made, man? And now I log a lot of.
That was just an outlet.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to.
We can get to a new section right
Okay. Got it.
you guys can jump in.
CARES. So CARES Act and some good news. Okay. Got it. All right. So Mark, let's talk about the CARES Act, right? And I had a couple of notes. Number one was loan types, right? How it relates to it. And number two was, again, going back to the housing voucher choice. So explain what is the CARES Act? When did it come into effect? And how does it affect us?
All right. So the CARES Act is a huge act that got passed in the tail end of COVID in 2020, 800 pages worth, and a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with real estate investors. But one section of that CARES Act was that you have to give 30-day notice to your tenants versus the traditional 5 notice we're all comfortable delivering these days. And the rest of the CARES Act most of it's gone away except a couple things, and this is one of them. And the funny thing is, here we are, 2025. So 4 years later, after this came out, almost, no one's delivering 30-day notices until late last year, call it fourth quarter of 2024, where the courts started now recognizing that this is being done wrong. It's not even the judges that. The judges let all these different evictions go through. It's the attorneys or the tenant advisory groups that are finally stepping in and saying, hey, whoa, that was the wrong notice delivered. It should have been a 5-day. It should have been a 30-day notice. And now this gets thrown out of court and you have to start the entire eviction process over again. Now, there's 2 people that fall into this CARES Act and you already kind of led to it, that have to deliver 30-day notice. It's one, if you have a Fannie or Freddie backed loan, which is your traditional mortgages for the most part, your conventional. If you got your neighborhood mortgage broker, more likely you have a Fannie Mae loan. And you can look that up. I got a link if we want to look that up so you know. Another one is if you have a Section 8 tenant. They're both has to do with the government, so the government kind of has that control over you. So you have to deliver a 30-day notice with that.
So, okay, so let me just kind of break it down, explain that. So basically, if it's a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan, what happens is, so example would be, like I used to have a townhouse at one time that I used to live in. Now on that, I still have the existing loan. I never refied it. I never did anything with it. It's almost paid off. But if I have to do an eviction and I have to serve a notice because there is a residential loan, that's Freddie or Fannie. On that, you're saying I would have to serve a 30-day notice.
Yes.
Now, I have another rental property right next to it. On that one, I have a commercial loan, right? 30-year commercial loan. Because it's a commercial product and because it's not government-backed loan, on that one, I serve a 5-day notice.
Correct.
Right? And so is it going to come up? Maybe come up, maybe not come up in your case, but it certainly can. And so it's just another one of those things. And the other thing is that it may come up in your eviction. Now your attorney that's representing you has to know that nuance difference because they may bring up, oh my God, and then they have to be able to point out, well, no, this is not a Freddie and a Fannie loan. And your attorney may not even know how's the attorney going to know what kind of loan you have on that particular property? So another thing, if you're a astute investor, that is something that you're going to have to let your attorney know because the attorney may not even know.
Yeah, and you could have that property free and clear,
right,
and have a Section 8 tenant, and you still have to end up in that.
Yeah, and so the other piece of it was that if it's a Section 8 tenant, right, that's the other piece of it. So you have a property with a commercial loan on it, but a Section 8 tenant, now you again have to give them a 30-day notice instead of a 5-day notice.
Now, the one spot that's really gray in there, and the attorney's advised to follow the 30-day rule, is if you have a commercial loan and you have one Section 8 tenant in there in Unit 1, but do you still have to deliver a 30-day notice to Unit 2?
Oh, okay.
So that's the gray area where they're saying just follow
okay.
That's one thing that's gray that they've seen it get kicked out of court and honored. So both ways.
Yeah. And part of it is also the temperament and mood of the judge, right?
Well, it's usually the tenant's representation, if they have representation.
If they point it out, and the judge is always going to go on this side of caution.
Think about this. 4 years into this, the judges haven't been calling anything
Yeah.
out until the tenant advisory group stood up and started saying stuff.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. So anything else that we may have missed in terms of what do you see? Where do you see the real estate market going? But Trump won.
Yeah.
Right? So at least for real estate, quote unquote, professionals or real estate investors and people, it should be a favorable market. It's supposed to be, at least.
Yes, no, I definitely think, and I think some of the stuff we're talking about, maybe. So the one reason that CARES Act thing is stuck around so long is the Democrats have wanted to maybe put that into permanent law, where
Got it.
across the board 30-day notice. So maybe something like that will go away. That might be good news. But at the same time, I think we're still going down this. We're turning into more of a asset economy, where just having more with less inventory. I think things are just. We're still going to be in this inflationary mode, I think, for the next 10 years. So the people, especially now, that are saying, let's wait 2 more years, or I'm saving up for 2 more years. Like, figure out how to get that money now and buy now, because that asset's going to be maybe out of your reach here in a couple of years. So I definitely think inventory is not going to change anytime soon, and I definitely think prices are not going to. You might have some neighborhood type scenarios where things go up and down a little, but I think things will continue to climb just because of the inventory.
No, I mean, I think it's good news for investors. I genuinely feel that if you're an investor, whenever the economy goes up, especially if you own a lot of real estate, it's really good for you. When the economy starts coming down, it's really good for you, because now the amount of discounts you get on properties is really huge, right? So as long as you know how to play the game, whether it goes up or whether it goes down, it's good,
Yep.
right? I mean, it's kind of, you have to understand how to position yourself and how to play the game.
As long as you're not selling and trying to sell, you're
Right,
all
exactly,
good, man. Like,
right? So there's one good news, and that is with the Cook County sheriffs.
Oh, man,
right? I mean, this is a pain in the ass if anybody understands Cook County evictions, right? This is the biggest bullshit ever with the whole Cook County sheriffs and the way it works. And I don't know why it's such incompetence, but it is. So explain what happens. I got an order in Cook County court that, okay, you can evict this person. Now, what do I do with that court order?
So it's not that. It's in the front end of the process.
Oh, the front end. Okay,
So
go ahead.
when you go for file for eviction,
Okay.
right now in Cook County, you have to. It goes to the sheriff first. The sheriff has 30 days, and you go back to that first court call, and either sheriff delivered it and you keep going, or they didn't. Which I don't know anyone that's done an eviction in Cook County. If you've had it, it's very rare. The sheriff actually makes service. But now, instead of going to the sheriff, you could literally, you guys still pay the sheriff department $5, which is grateful. Let's take the $5 and you can go hire your own process server for $85, $95 and go get that served right away. That way, when you show up to court the first time, you're able to get it right in front of the judge right away. Where historically, you're typically having to go out another 2 to 3 weeks after that first court date. Oh, and that's just time on top of the whole process. So this should cut 2 to 3 weeks off of any Cook County eviction at this point.
Got it. Because what used to happen was you were expecting the Cook County sheriff to basically serve the person.
Yes.
You're saying in 5% of the cases?
And the number was crazy low. I know for us, I don't remember the last time they actually served them. For us, knowing.
So basically, pretty much that was waste of time, and more than the $5. Obviously, it's not a money issue. It's like it's costing you 30, 60 days because now you just lost that rent. You lost time. You go into winter. All of these things happen. So now, basically, you can go and get a private process server. Go serve the notice so you can get the person to court a lot quicker.
Yep.
Right?
And this is specific to Cook County, DuPage, Kane, the Collier counties. You've always been able to do it that way.
Got it. Okay. And the reason why this is important, because and I guess this is a good question for you, since you guys manage a lot of properties. At least in our experience, most of the times, if you get the person to court, most of the times, most people will be amenable to either working out something, or they generally get out quickly, right? Generally, you don't have to, quote unquote, kick them out. Sometimes you do, but what is your experience in general?
Well, right now, for anyone we have issues with, we're trying to get them to court sooner than later, because you have you get up to $15,000 right now through all the court. This is a whole other topic that we're not even planning on going to, but that's out there right now, and you can get up to $15,000 that goes towards past due rent and 2 future months. So we're trying to get people in court to get that money to get them back on track.
Hold on. you're skipping over an important thing. Okay, so just explain what is this exactly? $15,000.
So Illinois, and we have an article on our website about this too. It has the court-based rental assistance.
Okay.
So if I'm filing my tenant, we get them into court. They have time to talk with rental assistants, fill out the paperwork, and right now you could get up to $15,000. So and that goes towards past rent and 2 future months. And the whole goal of it is to get the tenants back on their feet. So that's
And this is through the state,
this is through Illinois, yes.
Illinois state. So, and this is all counties?
This is all counties.
Okay.
So I did a video the other day, and I said the number one thing I see owners do is keep trying to not go into the eviction process, not go through that, not pay the $600 filing fee, whatever it might be, when they could get them in there sooner, actually stand a chance to get this money and be able to maybe not have to do a turnover, right? The turnover when a tenant goes bad usually is more expensive than anything else because they've just been in there not taking care of the place. But if you're able to kind of get them back on track, that's huge. So not only do you not have to wait for the Cook County Sheriff, and now you could get them into court sooner, and you can maybe get that $15,000 worked out.
Oh, okay. Wow. I had no clue that was available. So, and because it is through the state, it's not coming, quote unquote, you're not doing a deal with the tenant where they're making $100 payments a month or week, that kind of stuff.
Tenant fills out some paperwork, you fill out some paperwork, usually takes 3 or 4 weeks to get to it and usually get a response back. Now, the only time I see it fail is if the tenant doesn't do their side of the papaperwork. So if you have a bad situation, then maybe you bought a property with the tenant and they're not even talking to you, you might not be able to solve it that way. But so that's another motivation for getting things in a court right now sooner.
Got it. So before we wrap it up, real quick, I know you were doing a bunch of light industrial kind of stuff, right? Are you still continuing down that path? What do you see?
Yes. So in 2024, we bought a property locally here. We like all the Collier counties, light industrial. We're big fans of it. They can't build these smaller, call it 60s, 70s, 80s built warehouses for the price per square foot that you could buy them for. So reproduction value, we're already up on that. And they don't even build them anymore because with all the different zoning restrictions and setbacks and retention, all that stuff, they won't even allow these type of buildings. So your buildings like Addison, or your cities like Addison, Wooddale, Elk Grove, they're not building those anymore. And if anything, you see they're tearing them down and building these behemoth buildings. So big fan of that still. We have an off-market campaign that we're always trying to find stuff on. And we actually did our first raise this past year. So it was an interesting year where I learned some lessons.
Got it. So you guys do a great podcast. For everybody listening, if you have not listened to Straight Up Chicago, and I mean it from bottom of my heart, right? It's zero promotion, 100% solid content, right? That is something I love about their podcast, and it's all true real estate professionals, right? And this is not coming from an agent angle of it or whatever. This is purely, if you're an investor, and it's not just in Chicago, if you're an investor anywhere, I think you get a massive amount of value, very little self-promotion of the investor trying to sell you something, but it's just pure value that you guys deliver. So how do people reach you?
You can find me. I've been on LinkedIn a lot more often. I finally started Instagram last year. So Mark Ainley, REI on Instagram. So
okay, Mark Ainley. So say that again.
Mark Ainley, REI.
Mark Ainley, REI on Instagram. Having said that, Mark, thank you so much, man. This has been awesome. You're listening to Andrew Holmes on Cashflow For Life. And please share, like, and share us with your friends because that's how we get to grow. Thanks a bunch. Have a good day.